Hi folks, welcome to this week's Inside Track with Scottish Sun with Jim Delahunt here, who's down at Ayr Racecourse. You can see the Roll of Honour winners board in the background. Jim, have you got a updated going report for us live from the track?
Yeah, the big question, obviously, Robert, is which horse is going to be added to this board tomorrow night, or Saturday night, in actual fact. McDermott, the winner, the latest one to be etched on the board for Willie Mullins last year, ridden by his nephew Danny. We have 23 runners in the Scottish Grand National at Ayr on Saturday. We'll come to that very shortly. But I have had a word with the clerk of the course, Graham Anderson, this morning. And he says the going is good to soft all round. That's the hurdles track and the chase track. They've been watering 24 hours a day for the last 7 days. So that shows you how seriously they want this going to be good to soft for start of racing on Friday. They were actually watering for 2 days before that as well, but not for the full 24 hours. And he also tells me that after racing on Friday, starting at 6 o'clock, they will water overnight again to make sure that they've got good to soft ground for at least the start of racing on Saturday. But clearly that has had some kind of effect on the field for the National, Robert, because there is a safety limit of 30. We had 33 declarations and 23 are going to face the starter as things stand at the moment. But I suppose you could say, Robert, that the fact that Willie Mullins has 6 in the race has maybe frightened a few more than the going.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the juggernaut runs up the road here from Aintree up to Ayr this week, where he's going head to head with Dan Skelton for the title for a second year in a row. I mean, what he did last week at Aintree was just phenomenal, wasn't it? Right up there with one of the great training performances.
It really was. It was up there with Michael Dickinson, first 5 in the Gold Cup. It really was. It was absolutely fantastic. One, two, three, and then some more place money as well, just to add to that ever-growing total in the pursuit of Dan Skelton. I wonder if people have been very quick to think that Willie will overtake Dan. I mean, the gap is 120,000 at the moment, so he's going to have a good day at Ayr and a good day at Sandown. So we'll see how that goes. And of course, as we'll mention later, Perth as well. He's going to take it all the way right up to Perth as well. But in terms of the national, he hasn't run. He's not got high class hero in, which I thought was interesting, and neither has he declared O'Moore Park, which a lot of people in Ireland seem to fancy this week. And there was a bit of money for the horse, but he does still have 6, including last year's winner. Which of course is McDermott, and amazingly, Robert, that horse is a pound lower than it was last year after some, shall we say, interesting outings in Ireland this season.
Do you think that they've had an eye on this meeting, thinking, well, if all goes well at Cheltenham and Aintree, like they expected it to, they would come up to Ayr with mob-handed once again and just try and pip Skelton on the line? Because I mean, it's added a fantastic narrative to the end of the jump season, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has. And in terms of the Scottish Grand National, I know that McDermott, the owner, certainly wants to win the race again. I've spoken to him, but Chosen Witness is the one that's attracting the money at the head of the market. And you can see why. Very, very lightly raced young chaser. Actually won at this meeting last year on the Saturday, won the 3 mile novices handicap hurdle, which we'll mention later on. That's going to be run at 4:10 on Saturday. Back to try and win the Scottish Grand National this weekend. I know both of us had a wee inkling that Whistle Stop Tour might make amends for what went wrong at Cheltenham last time, but Peter Scudamore and Lucinda Russell have chosen to run that horse earlier on the card, which again we'll come to shortly. And the one I'm edging towards this week, and I've mentioned it in the Inside Track column in the Scottish Sun as well, is Surrey Quest, last year's runner-up. I've never seen so many owners look so disappointed last year when they went down by a nose. They really fancied their horse last year. They've given it a real proper preparation to come back and try and win it this year. Showed up very well at Musselburgh last time. And I think Surrey Quest has got a real good chance of going one better. Remember, he was only beaten a nose by a very well handicapped McDermott. You can argue that McDermott is even better handicapped this time around. But Surrey Quest, this time, they have trained it especially for the National. And I'm going to come down on his side this weekend.
Well, I'm going to have splinters on my backside because I'm going to go for one from the Mullins yard and one from the Skelton yard. I'll start off with the Skelton one. Snipe, a horse that we put up in the Great Yorkshire Chase earlier in the year. He was only 2 lengths behind the changing man that day, who went on to run a blinder in the Ultima behind Mayertown at the festival.
Yeah.
He's £2 lower than that. I mean, he's also got form with the Welsh national winner Val Dancer from Carlisle early in the season. So, I mean, I think he's got to have a chance right at the bottom of the weights. Harry Atkins is going to take £7 off. Good to soft will be fine for him. They put cheek pieces on him the last time at Warwick. That seemed to work okay. He ran quite well that day. I wonder if they've had him since the Great Yorkshire Chase. They've had him marked out as a contender for this. And the other one is a Willie Mullins one, Spanish Harlem, which ran in the race last year. He's kept high company this year. Last week's
Yeah.
Grand National winner, Nick Rocket, he's been running races against him. Three Card Bragg, who was well fancied. Percival Galwa, who was well bet. We're running enlisted company, just tipping around, finishing kind of mid-division. He's back here £4 lower than he was 12 months ago. And of the Mullins six, any of the six could win. You would think they all have the kind of right profile. But Spanish Harlem, he was 33 to 1 earlier in the week. I took a bit of that. Waiting to see the jockey bookings will probably shake up the market. So we're waiting to see what the jockey bookings are later on today. But I think Spanish Harlem, no, he finished sixth in the race last year, only beaten 8 lengths. And I think he's handicapped to go close this time round.
Yeah, well, that seems pretty sensible, having a Mullins and a Skelton on side, Robert. We'll move on to the Scottish Champion Hurdle, which is the second biggest race in the card, worth 100 grand, as it was last year. Now, Willie doesn't run his big two here. Carjess and Absurd have both been taken out. They were very strongly fancied in the anti-post market, but he does still run four, so you have to respect all of them. But even before the declarations were made, I was very, very sweet on what was an outsider, but I don't think it's going to be an outsider. It's Adrian Keatley's horse, Kihava, going to be ridden by the former champion jockey, Brian Hughes. Will absolutely adore this slightly quicker ground for jump racing anyway. Kihava, he's got a tremendous record on the flat at Ayr. He's won his last two on the flat at Ayr. He was second in an Ebor, remember? Now, remember, Absurd, the top weight, had won an Ebor. Kihava was second in last year's Ebor. I think he's got a superb chance at the weights. Well, it's good to have a Mullins and a Skelton on side in the Grand National, Robert. There's no doubt about that. But the Scottish Champion Hurdle, Coral sponsored again, 100 grand again. The other big race on the card, the second biggest prize pot that the Mullins hordes will be chasing. He's got four in this race. But interestingly, he doesn't run the two big guns, Carjess and Absurd, which had both attracted money at the top of the market. That's good news for me because I fancied one that was a bit of an outsider. I think it'll be a lot shorter now, and that's Kihava. Trained by Adrian Keatley, ridden by Brian Hughes. Hasn't run since the Fighting Fifth. That was at Newcastle in November, behind a very good horse, of course, which we haven't seen since, Sir Gino. I think Kihava is nicely handicapped over hurdles, given his exploits on the flat. Remember, he was second in an Ebor last year. His record at Ayr on the flat is superb. He loves this good ground. He's won his last two on the flat at Ayr. Has been beaten over hurdles here, but that was a couple of years ago when he was rated a lot lower. I think Keatley's laid him out for this. And interestingly, had a winner yesterday on the flat. Kihava, I think, has a superb chance in this Scottish Champion Hurdle, and Brian Hughes in the saddle. So that's my thoughts on the Champion Hurdle.
Well, we started the season thinking Dysart Enos would be mixing it in Grade 1 company. Do you still think she's got a bit of potential in her, or has she reached her ceiling now? I mean, they tried the Mares Hurdle last time out at Cheltenham. They stepped back and trip again here. I mean, she's had this lofty reputation, and Fergal O'Brien's been saying that he thinks the horse is coming back to herself. Do you think she's got any chance at all?
Yeah, on the handicap, I think she's very well handicapped. But I had a look at her last two runs on the video last night, and nothing jumped out at me. So I know Fergal's a miracle worker, and I'm sure he could bring her up here and win the Scottish Champion Hurdle because she is handicapped to run a very, very big race indeed. But I'm just ruling her out this time. Although, like you, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see her run a massive race.
Yeah, yeah. We start off the card in the 110 handicap chase. I quite like Trapper in Law in this for Lucinda Russell, Peter Scudamore. He's got form figures of 1, 2, 3 over fences at Ayr, and he won over hurdles at the track. Now, you kind of think he probably wants a bit softer ground, but he did win on good ground over hurdles here before, so I'm not too against him on the ground, but I think he's starting to look well handicapped. He shed £8 in the last three runs, and his mark 135 looks probably about where he should be. I mean, he was up at 143, which I thought was quite lofty, but just I noticed a wee stat in this race that 9 of the last 11 winners have got form at the track, so I just think Trapper in Law is worth a second look with his form at the track, and we know he likes it round there.
Yeah, he likes it around there, and for those who are into such things, he's one of the best looking horses in training. I absolutely love Trapper in Law. He's got the ability as well, as you mentioned, his Ayr record. I think he's handicapped enough. I think he's absolutely fine at these weights. And interesting that the Russell team have decided to declare him, given the fact that they're slightly worried about the ground for the Grand National. But Trapper in Law, I think, has got a great chance. I'd be slightly worried here about Western Diego for the Willie Mullins team. Don't know enough about that horse to be totally confident about his handicap mark. But Trappy-in-Law ran well here last year on this particular day, and I think he'll run a big race again. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, and then the 143 Whistle Stop Tour. This is a race he goes in instead of the
Yeah.
National. Anybody that's watched this knows he's a horse that we both really, really like. And we think he's got a big future. I mean, I can understand why after nearly getting brought down at Cheltenham, they said the horse got a bit spooked, never ran his race at all. We could go on and on and on again about the starter that day, but I can see why they've stayed away from the big field handicap this time. He is only a novice. I think he's probably looking at him as next year's horse. So I can understand why they've went down this route. We know he likes air. He's already won at the track this year. Peter Scudamore's always been adamant that he thinks this horse wants better ground. So I don't have any fears of the ground. I mean, Pick Rock, another horse that we both liked at Cheltenham that was done in by the starter. He looks dangerous, and he'll probably take him on up front. So you won't get it all his own way. But I think Whistle Stop Tour will have a right chance in the 143.
Yeah, so do I. I'm definitely with Whistle Stop Tour. I kind of thought that before, but once I was looking at the Grand National, I thought, well, if he comes out, he's probably going to run in the other race, which, as you mentioned, is a novice race, even though it's worth 50 grand. So Whistle Stop Tour, perfectly well handicapped, same as Cheltenham. I think he's got a superb chance. We know he loves air. I know the owner's coming. All the owners are coming, so they're certainly looking forward to a good day out. I think Whistle Stop Tour's got a great chance. I think this race is cut up just in his favour. There's one or two which I thought might run, don't. And I think Whistle Stop Tour, I'm hoping he's not too short a price because I don't really want to be taking 94 5 to 2. But if he's 72 4 to 1, I think we might have a bet in our hands. Whistle Stop Tour in the 143.
And then we've looked at a couple of other races. The 410. Have you got anything in that, Jim?
Yeah, I'm going to leave out the last two. I'm going to leave that Novice's hurdle at 445 because it's cut up quite badly and it's probably between the Jukebox Kid and Chart Topper. And the bumper, I think I'll just wait to see them in the paddock, Robert. But in terms of the Novice's handicap hurdle at 410, which incidentally is the race that was won last year by the Scottish Grand National favourite Chosen Witness, I think there's a horse with a real chance in here. It's trained by Nicky Richards, Danny McMenamin in the plate, Barra Tablet. Came here for its debut with a big reputation. I know Danny thinks a lot of the horse. He was in that other Novice's hurdle to take on the Mullins horse, Chart Topper, and also the Jukebox Kid, but they've decided to go down the handicap route. I think he's perfectly well handicapped here. And if Nicky thinks the ground is fine, then the ground is fine because Nicky is very, very particular. So I think if Barra Tablet is still in the field come 10 past 4 on Saturday, we've got a bet in our hands because I think he's very well handicapped indeed and will relish 3 miles.
Yeah, I think Quebecois for Paul Nicholls has got to have a chance. He's a half brother to Brindisi Breeze, so stepping up to 3 miles is exactly what he's bred for. He ran a race at Kempton the day after Cheltenham last month against Kingston Pride. Made a horrendous error at the last. Ended up getting beat 5 lengths, but he had Kingston Pride in a bit of trouble that day. I just think the step up to 3 miles would be the making of him. They'll just go that stride slower. And I think if his jumping's better than it was the last time, and he only did make one mistake. He didn't have a bad round of jumping. He just made a bad error, 2 out. But I think if he goes out in front, I think he might be quite hard to catch.
Yeah, and under the radar because everybody will be concentrating on Skelton and Mullins. The Nicholls horses are absolutely firing. He had a tremendous Liverpool. You've mentioned one already. He's got one in the bumper on Saturday as well, which is worth a very close look. Gillespie, which I think Harry Cobden is going to ride as well. But he's quite well represented on Friday. There's one of his horses in particular I'm going to mention in the 240. But have you got any fancies in particular in the handicap hurdle, which opens the card on Friday at 1:30?
Yes, well, I know the quickest road to the poorhouse is giving horses that disappoint you last time a second chance, but I'm going to do it this time with Willful for the John O'Neill stable. We put this horse up for the Moor Battle at 20 to 1, and he got absolutely smashed into 72.
Yeah.
And I think if John Joe Jr. was riding the race again, he would not go off in front and get caught in a battle with Ngolo because the pair of them got to about 4 out and they just burst and they went flying back through the field. So I think if he had his day again, he would ride it completely differently. I think this time he'll be more sensible. Just given the way that he was backed, they obviously think he's on a very, very good mark because that was a huge market move in the Moor Battle. So Wilford, I think he's about 10 to 1 at the moment. I'm quite interested in him in the 130.
Interesting. And then the second race is a Mare's Maiden Hurdle, which has not got very many runners, but interesting in the fact that Kenita May, I thought, ran an improved race last time for the Lucinda Russell team. excuse me, owned by Ray Green, who of course owns that horse we mentioned for Saturday, Traprain Law. Loves having a winner at Ayr. Named after his late wife, Anita. I think Anita May will run a big race in the 205, but I won't be having a bet. I'll just be keeping an eye on that. The one I want to bet is the 240. It's a 3 mile handicap hurdle. And the one here, which I've just alluded to, is the Paul Nicholls trained Histrionic, which is ridden by Harry Cobden. It was a little bit disappointing in his first couple of starts, but I thought he came good with some aplomb at Chepstow last time. And I think this is probably the right grade to keep him in to try for a follow-up. What about yourself?
I can see your point with that one. I Am Max is a horse that I think has been
Yeah,
threatening to win a race like this. Sandy Thompson's horses have not been in great form this year, but I was at Kelso on Monday and Ganapathy done a really good race to finish a
did.
close second. So there's maybe a few signs of life there. And I Am Max has kind of been chapping at the door in these kind of races, down at Haydock and places like that. So he won a novice hurdle at Ayr in the past against a horse that's a dollar collar who won at Kelso on Monday as
Yeah.
well. So I think I Am Max is he'll have a little chance of winning a race like this, I would say.
Yeah, I would say so too. I was quite big on I Am Max in one of those races that you mentioned earlier in the season. So we've got two running for us there, Robert. The Hill House Quarry is the big race on the Friday. It's Ayr's longest sponsorship, going back 32 years at this meeting. And I've just been speaking to Mark Kershaw, former clerk here at Ayr and also Newbury, and he reckons there's a really classy field for this race this year. I think so too, but I'm going to come down on the side of Ben Pauling's horse, Leader in the Park, which I suppose on the face of it might have been slightly disappointing, not completing a hat trick last time. But I think this 2.5 miles with Ben Jones, the ever in form, it seems, Ben Jones in the saddle, will do for me with Leader in the Park.
And then the 425, I was interviewed Sean Bone the other day for the paper, the interviews in Thursday's paper, and we're just talking to him about his chances over the week, and he flagged up the 4 6s in
Yeah,
the 425 on Friday as his best chance of a winner for Ollie Murphy. Now, this is a horse we've actually spoke about in this programme before.
yeah.
We put it up at Newbury when he bombed out, and then completely forgot about him when he ran at Bangor and won the next time out, which was Sod's Law. But the 4 6s, he says he thinks he ran well at this meeting last year, and Sean Bourne thinks that's his best chance. So just pass on that bit of information.
Okay, that's always gratefully received. I'll just mention the fact that I think Dan Skelton will have a winner on the Friday, and I think it'll be Nurse Susan. They run in this race instead of a race on Saturday, so I'm going to go for Nurse Susan against you in that race, the 425. In the last race, it's conditionals and amateurs. It's hands and heels, so they can carry their whips, Robert, but they're not allowed to use them. And I'm going for who the guy I think is one of the most competent conditionals around at the moment, Callum Pritchard, and he rides below the radar for Paul Nicholls. So I'm taking below the radar to give Nicholls a double. So easy, isn't it?
What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong?
Anyway, Jim, thanks very much for that, and good luck with your bets this weekend, folks.
Thanks, Robert. All the best, everybody.